Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Preservation Georgetown Home Tour. My name is Austin Painshot, and I'm the current board president for Preservation Georgetown. What you're about to see is our first ever virtual home tour, which is being held in place of our in-person tour, which was scheduled in May and was canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. First off, I want to thank our homeowners. Without them, we would not be able to showcase some of the beautiful historic properties that Georgetown has to offer tonight. First, Kelly and Michael Worden at 904 Ash, Sid Ransom and John Lawton at 1103 South Elm, and Jeannie Snead of San Gabriel House Bed and Breakfast, as well as Danni Babik, manager of San Gabriel House Bed and Breakfast. Next, I'd like to highlight our amazing sponsors who originally sponsored our in-person tour and agreed to continue their sponsorship through the virtual tour. Our platinum sponsors are Joanna and Bill Hara, Carolyn Holloway, Larry Olson, Deanne and Glenn Coward, Misty and George Porter, and Joy Morrison and Paul Ranney, and Minuteman Press. Our gold sponsors are Corrigan Building Company, the Williamson County Sun, J. Bryant Boyd Design Build, Wildfire Restaurant, Riata Builders, and Wang Architects. Our silver sponsors are Click Computers, Access Realty, McIntyre's Garden Center, Monument Cafe, Cindy and Jim Harrington, John F. Lewis PC, Linda Burns and Martha St. Clair of Cooper Sotheby's International Realty, Mustard Design Architects, T.A. Todd Construction, Century 21, Hellman Stribling, the Williamson Museum, Mary Jo Schoppa of Keller Williams, Dr. Sarah Cooper, Jane and Dr. Eric McKinney of Keller Williams Legacy, San Gabriel House Bed and Breakfast, Jerry and Billy McCulley, Debbie Bell and Cass Wheeler, Sandra Illig, Karen and Steve Daly, and Wagabag. Next, I'd like to thank Rachel Hancock, our virtual home tour chair, for shepherding us through the process of turning the in-person tour into a virtual event. I'd also like to thank A Step Ahead Imagery and Root Story Studios for the amazing work that you're about to see tonight. I'd like to thank Chris Thompson, our marketing and membership coordinator for Preservation Georgetown, for all the things that she does behind the scenes to keep our organization moving forward. I'd like to thank PG historian Liz Weaver for all the research that she did that you'll get to see tonight on these historic homes. I'd like to thank my entire Preservation Georgetown board, and I'd also like to give a special shout out to Karen Daly, the chair of our in-person tour that had to be canceled in May, for all the work she did to get that event to fruition, as well as this event. If you're inspired by this tour and want to get more involved with Preservation Georgetown, please go to preservationgeorgetown.org to learn more about our organization. We ask that you consider becoming a member and also making a gift toward our Preservation Fund, which provides grants to homeowners and businesses to complete restoration work and repairs for their historic buildings. Now, without further ado, I'll step away and let the 2020 home tour commence.
We were searching within about a 30 to 45 minute commute from Austin, as Kelly has to commute to downtown Austin, and we looked at all the historic homes around the area, and we landed on Georgetown. Just a beautiful little community, had a historic nature to it, and that's why we landed here.
The design of the house is considered a Folk Victorian. So back in the 1800s, a Victorian would have potentially a carpenter on site to add all the filigree onto the homes. This home was a little later in that time period, so some of the filigree actually was starting to be mass produced and brought in by the trains. So it's considered a poor man's Victorian, which we're all down with and think it's amazing and stuff. So I think some of the contemporary folk Victorian, modern but yet classic design home is the words for me. We walked by and just fell in love with the architecture on the front of the house. It was very simple, not too much, not too little, but it was in desperate need of help and renovation. And we loved being able to walk to town. We liked the location of it, and then the community that's around here that's built around the preservation in Georgetown.
The Wardens, wanting to know more about the history of their home, contacted Preservation Georgetown, Georgetown's historical society. After extensive research, Preservation Georgetown's historian Liz Weaver deemed the home the Carpenter-Hyer House. This name graces the historic marker proudly displayed on the front of the home, inviting all who visit to inquire about its history. In late 1883, Livingston Carpenter and his wife Mary acquired the land that they would build their home. In February of 1884, the Sun reported that our popular railroad agent, Mr. L.R. Carpenter, is having a dwelling built just west of the university enclosure. Subsequently, the paper reported that he had moved into his new home. In July of 1885, however, Carpenter sold the house to M.E. Steele for $1,000 cash and the assumption of the remaining loan of $169. In late July of 1885, Steele sold the house to Robert Hyer for $1,600. It appears that when he had the house built, Carpenter wasn't planning to leave Georgetown. Whether he was transferred or lost his job is unknown, but he left. There is no indication of transfer in the newspaper, but it looks like it happened quickly. He advertised in the paper in July and sold his house the same month. Steele, a local businessman, bought the house at a bargain, probably because Carpenter needed to sell. Steele then turned around and sold to Hyer, a Southwestern professor, making a tidy profit on the deal.
We wanted to, live within a community that cared about the houses. So this historic district does. Every person that we've met, all of the neighbors, they are very passionate about maintaining this because, look, it's a draw from not only just within the outer parameters of Austin, but nationally. And so it's the gem, right, that brings people here. And you got to have the heart to come in and preserve that so it continues through the future. So it's, that community aspect of everybody caring about this and, going to council meetings and fighting for what's good in the development for the future of the community to make sure that everybody keeps coming back. Mm-hmm. So that was the key.
In July of 1885, Dr. Robert Hyer purchased the house. He is known as the first president of Southwestern University and for designing the first Methodist church in Georgetown. According to his daughter, however, he has a grand list of other accomplishments. In her book, The Man I Knew, Ray Hyer Brown writes about her fond memories of her father. Brown says, "Father was most skillful with his hands. He was good at almost every craft. He could draw, paint, lay brick, thread pipe, and fix or mend anything. We had one of the first refrigerators in Georgetown, and Father made it. Bathtubs with running water were not in common use 65 years ago, but Father made one." Her father also managed to build his own X-ray machine. There was one skill her father did not enjoy, however, and that was papering a room.
It just spoke to us. We both like slightly different style of architecture. And this one had the original lines we didn't want to change. So the one aspect was we really wanted to try to preserve that original design when we were refurbing. So I would say one of the things that spoke to us were high ceilings, the somewhat design of windows when you're looking at the street presence of the house, and it just met both of our requirements.
Yeah, and I think another thing coming into the home, we I don't think we expected or planned on such an enormous renovation. It was maybe a kitchen, a couple of bathrooms, and we'll all be good. But again, talking about it speaking to you, I think that it just is in your heart and your soul, and you walk in and you go, this is it. This is what we have. And I think another redeeming factor that when we started pulling up carpet and we started really getting down to the bones, we have great video of us seeing all the wood floors that are in the house, and so excited that was just going to be refurbed and put back in, and we're very excited about that piece in the house. But look how wide it is, too.
Wow! That's so awesome. Yes! Look at how preserved that is.
My favorite thing is if you put a side-by-side picture now compared to previously when we bought the house, they match identically, right?
Yeah.
So you can see that the history is preserved, but we introduced a lot of contemporary nature to the design inside. So.
Yeah. And really the structure on the inside of the house, I mean, it just shows that good structure and good design transcends throughout 100 years. The transoms above the doors, the molding, the woodwork, all of that is what it was in the 1800s. We just, fixed it and painted it. And so it just shows that what was designed and a good design goes on forever.
Yeah. And I think I wouldn't be doing justice if I didn't shout out to Gary Wang, who is our architect for the design, because we had visions that reside in your head, and to translate that into drawings that can be fabricated by Riata builders, that's not easy. Mm-hmm. So without him, we couldn't have.
We had a
done
lot
this.
of help. We found the right help to help us make it happen.
Yeah. But specific things, I think you asked specific things that maybe each of us like in the design. One for me is the wood flooring and the wood ceiling. So as you go through the video, they represent something of the house originally. So every board, which myself and children pulled out of the house originally and denailed, are put back in because it's longleaf pine. And so there's a pattern of 7-inch, 5-inch, 4-inch, and 3-inch in the floor, and that represents floor joists, walls, ceilings, original ones put back in. So that's meaningful to me.
Yeah. I think community and being around people that find it vital to preserve and for future generations is key. And I don't really know if we decided that was very important. I mean, we love the home, but I think once we kind of got into the community and we got into the house and got around people that have the same passion, we're like, yeah, we agree. We think it's vital and important for us to preserve and keep these for future generations. So I think it was in our heart, but we didn't realize how much until we kind of got into the nitty-gritty of the house and the people and the community and meeting people that have that same passion. And we just said, yes, let's do this.
I'm a native Austinite, and I've been living in Dallas for about 35 years. And there were some life changes, and I was ready to move back home. But I didn't want to be in Austin, and I knew a little bit about Georgetown because, well, we came here when I was a child, off and on. And I have family members here, and it just had a really good feel. I needed to find a place that made me feel really happy, and that's the way this house felt. So the company that did the renovation on the house was Green Earth Builders, and I'd heard about that company before from my sister-in-law, and so I knew they had a good reputation, and that was another thing that really made me feel very comfortable in pursuing the house, was because I knew the renovation would be done well. I lost my husband from 33 years of marriage several years ago. And so moving here to Georgetown was like the beginning of a new phase, you know, and getting this house was a real important thing, you know, to find a place where I felt really comfortable and where I was going to be, you know, happy for the next phase of my life. And that was all great. And what I didn't expect was that I would meet a really special man in that process who we fell in love and got married. And so, you know, he's part of my house and he's part of my life. And he's actually the owner of Green Earth Builders. So, you know, it's just a funny twist on things. Certainly something I wouldn't have expected when I bought this house.
Carpenters George and Thomas Irvin, along with their wives and children, came to Georgetown in the 1870s. Both Scottish immigrants and carpenters, the brothers set about establishing themselves as part of the young Texas town they now called home. In 1881, builder George Irvine bought the north half of the block from George Glasscock for a sum of $280. By 1883, the brothers had established a business, Irvin Brothers, dealers in lumber, sash, doors, and blinds. They quickly became involved in the town as members of Grace Episcopal Church, and by 1884, George was one of Georgetown's aldermen. George and Rebecca lived in Georgetown with their children, Ava, Edgar, Chester, and George. In 1881, George set about establishing a home for his family. He bought a half block of land on Elm Street, and we can assume he planned to build a house there. A few months later, however, he bought the southeast corner of that same block, and there he chose to build his family home. The children grew, and eventually a young man caught Ava's eye. He was Wiley Sillure, the son of wheelwright John Sillure, another Scottish immigrant who lived in Georgetown. In 1897, the young couple married. The 1900 census shows Ava and Wiley as renters in a house on Cedar Street. That was the name of 11th Street in those days, and the young couple was living in a house that George built. The house was at the corner of Elm and Cedar, and it faced north. The 1900 Sanborn fire map shows the block bounded by Elm, Cedar, Ash, and University. The northwest corner is Ava and Wiley's house, and the southeast corner is George's house. Ava and Wiley stayed in the little cottage a few years before moving on, and in 1902, Irvin sold the cottage to jeweler A.S. Rosebrow and his wife, Carrie. In 1904, however, the couple decided to move to Oklahoma and sold the little cottage to Charles Fabian and his wife, Emma.
I love things that are old and that have a history, you know, that have a previous life. And this area and having an older home just appeals to me. I feel like it's an honor, you know, and I feel like it's an honor to be able to step in the new shoes of an old house and kind of, you know, respect its history and really bring new life into it so that it can, you know, it can further its existence.
Fabian was a bank bookkeeper, and they kept the house for 10 years, eventually selling to Theodore Stewart. The Stewarts were a big family. By 1920, Theodore had married and moved to Olive Street, and the little house on 11th was occupied by his mother Melissa, her mother Mary Minton, 3 of Melissa's daughters, and 4 of her grandchildren. The 1916 Sanborn map shows the addition to the front porch, but the house must have been bursting at the seams. The next few years brought big changes to the house, and by the 1930 census, the front door had been moved to the Elm Street side. The Stewarts were an integral part of Georgetown. All three of Miss Stewart's daughters were public school teachers, with Julia and Edith teaching at the Georgetown Public School just a couple of blocks from their house. The house stayed in the Stewart family until 1943, when it was sold to Dr. O.W. and Nell Benold. Following that, Ray and Mary Nell Hodges owned the house from 1948 to 2003, and the home finally became the property of St. John's United Methodist Church in 2006. In 2008, the house, which had been a rental, came up for sale, and neighbors Linda and Greg Austin decided to buy it and make it an attractive family home again. They put together a plan and hired John Lawton, owner of Green Earth Builders, to restore the home. Through the renovation, Lawton straightened sloping floors that were previously enclosed porches, relocated a bathroom to a central point in the house, and added a sitting area and master bedroom to the rear of the house. Remaining from the original home, though, is the living room area with its high beadboard ceiling.
I would drive past it every day, and I watched the progression of the renovation, and I'd walk through here, just to kind of every once in a while walk through it when they were working on it. The guys doing the renovation were real friendly and would always say, "Hey, come on in." So I kind of, watched a couple of phases happen, and anyway, it all worked out, and it was mine. But the turning point in my interest really was when the yellow trim and the front door went up, because yellow is a really happy color for me. And so when the yellow went up, that's when I really went into action to see if there was already a contract on the house, if it was still available or what. And so it was meant to be, I think. It just felt like mine. And really, anybody who knows me very well at all, family or friends who saw the house before or even after I bought it, and they just said, it's you, it just says you all over it. So it was just, just had the feel. The layout was good, and like I said, lots of windows, lots of light, a nice yard, front porch. It really has ended up being exactly what I thought. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the yard and on the front porch. I love that. I love that there's a little workspace here in the garage. I really love the sunroom in the back. I just like having a lot of light. One of the things that I love about the house is that they took out, all the windows were reworked. I think in the beginning none of them were functional, opening, but now they all open, which is so great, for a house this age to be able to open the windows. And I hope that it feels to other people who come. I hope that it feels like a warm and welcoming place, like a place where my friends and family can come and feel at home, and feel relaxed. And I think that they do.
overall mission in buying the house, besides having it continue to run as a bed and breakfast, was that I wanted to keep it in its historic condition, or go back to its historic condition, whatever the case may be. I did not want to make a lot of changes to it structurally. I just wanted to restore it and just, bring out its full beauty and potential.
In 1904, Dr. Hyer decided to build a family home near Southwestern University. The Sun reported that Dr. Hyer is having a new residence constructed on University Avenue, just south of the university building. The Belford Lumber Company have the contract. In 1904, The Sun reported that Hyer's new residence just opposite of the university is nearing completion. It is a beautiful 10-room building, modern, convenient, and artistically designed. It is indeed a credit to Georgetown and the university vicinity. Fast forward to 1910, and as you can see on the census, the Sells family now owned the home. Unfortunately, in December of 1918, the Sells home caught fire. The fire department arrived on the spot with all possible dispatch and was assisted by the Student Army Training Corps who lived on the campus. The SATC was the World War I equivalent of ROTC. Miss Sells was so thankful, she decided to write a card of thanks. After the fire, the family decided to rebuild. A fire suppression system was added on both floors, which is still present today.
So I've known about this house all my life. We moved into an apartment and we're looking at houses, and this is one of the ones we looked at. And we loved it. I have two sisters, and we just ran all over the place, up and down. There's a back staircase, and fell in love with it. And I always wished that we had bought this house, but we ended up buying a different one.
My husband and I have always loved the idea of preservation, of preserving our past, of admiring the skill and the design and the evolution of different styles, and saving the old houses and appreciating them for what they added, what they represent, the history that they hold.
The Milburns bought the home in the late 90s and did an incredible amount of refurbishing. Mr. Milburn removed the mirrored wall tiles in the entryway and laboriously peeled up the linoleum tiles from the floors and walls.
I have done a lot of work, but the contractor that I have is very good. He specializes in old houses, and they do as little of putting in new materials as they have to keep the house original. So
Painting was a good example of that. Roger started with the garage as we narrowed down exactly what colors to go with, but they would treat the old wood, take off some of the rough parts, patch things that needed patching, maintain the original, and then hand paint a base coat, hand paint the other coat, so the whole house was hand painted.
And then we found a guy who could take the paint off the bricks without using sand. So he used a different substrate to blast it off, but it's still a very messy process. And so we restored the bricks back to where they were while painting this. And they look great.
And then the floor.
And then one of the last things was to do this floor here. And the porch was painted, has always been painted. And we have a very big porch. It was painted a gray color.
Over a rust.
And there were
a couple layers.
There were several layers of paint. There was red, there was gray, there was even green under here. So many colors of paint. And so when Roger, the contractor, got ready to repaint it, he said, "I think it's time to take all the paint off." He hired a special contractor to sand it, who came and started sanding it and revealing this lovely wood that we have. And this is the original porch.
This is old growth hard pine. You cannot get wood like this anymore. There's no knots in it. It's full-length boards. It's amazing.
Entering through the front door reveals the front foyer with a mahogany built-in bookcase. Oak floors on the first floor are original, as is the long leaf pine flooring upstairs. All windows and doors are original. Many of the walls upstairs and down are upholstered, covered in elegant padded fabric. The dining room reveals a William Morris-style wallpaper, also appropriate for the era. Also on the first floor is the innkeeper's quarters, a front parlor, bedroom, and bath. In 2000, before the Wileys opened San Gabriel House bed and breakfast to guests, they added private baths to all the bedrooms and converted the sleeping porch to a fifth room. The Wileys raised antique roses in the back garden and named each room after a rose. Over the years, the room names have changed, but this room is still called Bishop Rose. Maiden's Blush is a lovely rose, but this room is now known as the Southwestern. Two huge closets were cleverly converted to provide a private bath and separate oversized shower. The window and built-in cabinet in the bath were present in the original closet. The original sleeping porch, now the garden view room, radiant and refreshing with a 4-poster bed and the most beautiful bathroom in the inn. As a sleeping porch, this room was made for maximum breezes, but very uniquely, all of the bedrooms have 3 walls of windows. The librarian's room, facing University Avenue, is the only bedroom with sconces on the fabric walls.
Think about this house is 120 years old. How many of us would still be in this good shape when we're 120 years old? How many of the houses that they built today are still going to be standing 120 years from now? Whatever the foundation, whatever kind of foundation this is on, it is solid.
I think we do have a shared vision, mission of the history and the preservation and the beauty of this house, and trying to make it as much like that as possible in a way that many people can enjoy it.
We want to share it. We do want to share it with the community. It's part of Georgetown, has been part of Georgetown for a very long time, and so we want it to be enjoyed.
I hope you enjoyed the 2020 Preservation Georgetown Home Tour. Again, if you'd like to learn more about our organization, learn more about becoming a member, and make a donation to the Preservation Fund, please go to preservationgeorgetown.org. Your support and your participation in keeping Georgetown historic is greatly appreciated. Thank you. We hope to see you soon.